bàbá. Èrè kí ló lè jẹ́ fún mi? Nígbà tí mo bá ti wọnú ilẹ̀ lọ, erùpẹ̀ ilẹ̀ kò lè yan lógo. Bàbá mi máa fọwọ́ mi yọ. Máa fọwọ́ mi yọ lọ. Máa ohun tí mo ní o. Máa ohun tí mo ní yọ bàbá. Èrè kí ló lè jẹ́ fún mi? Nígbà tí mo bá ti wọnú ilẹ̀ lọ, erùpẹ̀ ilẹ̀ kò lè yan lógo. Bàbá mi torí pé ó mú mi wà láyé, ó ṣeun o. Ó mú mi wà láyé, ó ṣeun o. Ọjọ́ oníṣojú mi.
Hello, hello.
Ẹni tí ò bá ní jọ̀bọ̀jọ̀bọ̀ lápá kò lè dáṣà mú kí ọ kí ọ.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. You are welcome to today's segment of How is Your Mental Health? How is your mental health? Wow. So many responses, so many questions, so much information. There are Facebook page or also on our website and Instagram, and people emailing directly on questions which they would want us to talk on, issues they would want us to address, and questions about various things that are happening in the society which can lead to mental breakdown, which can affect our mental health as individuals, as community, and also as a nation, which can lead to affecting us globally around the world. It's been a very interesting week after the last segment, which we discussed about question and answers and how to identify a person going through mental health challenges. I am still your host, and my name is OLUWANIYI-ASAAJU, the founder of KOA Foundation. KOA Foundation is Koforola OLUWANIYI-ASAAJU Foundation, which has been in existence for about 9 years now, both in Nigeria, here in the UK, and we have also covered United States. Thank you so much for watching this program. Thank you for staying tuned every Sunday, 7 p.m. UK, 7 p.m. currently Nigerian time. And I think it's about 2 p.m. in the United States. We really appreciate you for staying tuned with us and for listening to this program. By popular demand, after discussions from last week, I will be bringing you a topic today, which it's quite emotional. And about 3 or 4 people have identified, stories which they have related stories, they have talked about stories which I feel that has a basis for discussion today, has a basis for the topic which I will be discussing today. And that topic is very hot in identifying triggers and also identifying issues relating to, mental health. And because of this, I will be discussing a topic which I title trauma and mental well-being. Trauma and mental well-being, meaning that the effects of trauma on individuals' physical and mental health. If at times when we want to trace the history of a person going through mental breakdown, going through depression, going through mental illness, one form or the other, when we're discussing the history of the person, or if a professional is saying, tell me about yourself, tell me what's been going on in your life, tell me about your childhood, your growing up, and tell me what's been happening with you. A lot of answers an individual can give, responses an individual can give, can help the professional to actually pick out some elements which are inherent in trauma. It can lead to signs and symptoms which we can actually identify as trauma. It could either be childhood trauma, it could be trauma based on various things that have happened in that person's life, in the person's environment, and also journey, history of how life has actually played a role in the individual's either upbringing, either community, or maybe work ethics. So many things can identify as trauma. So in dealing with today's topic, effects of trauma on an individual's physical and mental health, I would like us together to define what trauma is. According to the Oxford Dictionary, trauma is identified as a concept. It's identified as a concept where a person goes through stress. It could be lifelong stress, it could be situational stress due to various events that have happened. So different types of stressful situation, different type of events in a person's life can be identified as trauma. So stresses is what leads to trauma. And trauma has been said through research, evidence-based practice and research by various people who have written, either done research on trauma or written literature reviews regarding some trauma. They have identified and told us that the concept of trauma has evolved over the years. And when trauma was first identified, it was during the World War, when the soldiers who went to war, some were maimed, some were shot, some were, they had very, very bad experiences. And many of the survivors during that World War, either World War I between 1914 and 1918, and World War II between 1939 and 1945, most of these people that are war survivors began to exhibit many signs and symptoms of trauma. And this is where work began to be done. Professionals began to pay a lot of attention to trauma, stresses in people's life, events that have led people to having various signs and symptoms. And that's where what we now know as post-traumatic stress disorder, PSTD, came out. PSTD is very common in the society now, but many things, many events, many stresses lead or contribute to what we know as PSTD today. So trauma can be experienced in childhood. It can be experienced in adolescent age, and sometimes also in adulthood. Adults can experience trauma, and these traumas can have, lifelong impact. It can impact on one's life seriously. Those stresses that have led to this trauma, many don't go away, and it can actually impact on someone living a holistic, rounded, and successful life. Trauma can play a great role in giving an individual, life-limiting experience whereby you are not able to function well or reach your optimum level as an individual. And through research, we have seen that many a times this can happen. So today we want to identify, causes and things that can actually lead to trauma. What are the things that cause trauma in someone's life? What are some of the events that can actually lead to this trauma? And we have identified through research that death of a loved one in the family, maybe a child losing their mom or father at a young, tender age, and they have not been able to overcome it. Recently, after last week's program, I got a call from a lady who told me that she watched this program and she penciled down the number. She penciled down number of a contact where she could reach us. And just from the blues, I received that call. And she said, oh, after listening to the program, she just felt she needed to talk to someone. And since I said I could be reached and I could be spoken to, she decided to call me. She gave me a bit of her history. And surprisingly, when she recounted, and as she said she lost her mom at the age of 6, that her mom, when she was 6, her mom passed away. And since then, she's not been able to cross that bridge. She's not been able to, she just found out that since she lost her mom, life has not been the same for her. And she dreams. She dreams, she sees her mom, and then she wakes up, with panic attacks and sweat and things like that. And that she's been to several churches for deliverance. But she just cannot cross that line. Please don't forget that I said it that at the beginning, when we were having our very first week on this podcast, How is Your Mental Health? I told you, I said that I am a pastor's wife. I am a lady evangelist. And the church where my husband pastors is Christ Apostolic Church. which is a very big church worldwide. So I'm a person of faith, and I know how much religion can play in, you know, in supporting people with mental health challenges and mental illnesses. So I do not discount or do not hold lightly the role of religion and my religion as Christian. So she told me, she said she's been to several churches for deliverance. She's tried to talk to pastors, leaders within the church on provision of support for her. And she was once told that she was being chased by witches, and that maybe her mom, you know, had extraterrestrial powers. And that's why she keeps seeing her mom. And she was told to do several things, maybe to, you know, pour salt on her bed. She was told to put holy water, all kinds of things. So after telling me about her childhood, how she lost her mom, the closeness between her and her mom then, I then asked her, I said, have you sought help? Have you done counseling? And she said, no, she hasn't. That, you know, that this is the first time she would actually open up to someone elaborately about the pain that she has not been able to overcome since the loss of her mom. And the pain has translated to not being able to forgive, you know, her mom for leaving her at a young age. And every milestone in her life, she always sees her friends, you know, either celebrating their mom's birthday or saying the role their mom played in their life. She feels cheated by life, and she transfers that anger, and she asks herself every time, why mom, why did you leave me? And this lady is very educated. She's well off. She's a middle class, just like myself, very articulate. And I asked her, I said, have you sought counseling or therapy? Have you spoken to a professional? And she said no, that she actually started believing that maybe her mom was doing her. And in Yoruba, we say that Iya ẹ̀ ló ń ṣe, because she's seen her mom in the dream. So I told her, I said, well, I'm going to take you through the questionnaire of depression and take you through some, you know, some tick boxes. And based on that, I would be able to assess whether you need professional help. But even without us going through that, I can tell you that you actually do need some form of counseling and therapy to support yourself. Because what you are telling me is that you are going through some form of mental challenge because of the loss of your mom. And that is called trauma. And she said, hey, I have thought of it, that there's something there. I said, call me in 1 or 2 days' time and we can go through this. And she did. And I signposted her. She actually lives here in the UK. I signposted her. I said, go and see your GP and tell them that you want to explore the opportunity of having, you know, therapy, talking therapy, maybe through a psychologist, or through, you know, someone that is a professional, a therapist. a psychotherapist to see you. And you can also ask for, grief, bereavement and grief, because you've not actually grieved the loss of your mom and you have not reconciled with the bereavement process, the 7 stages of bereavement. So she's gone, and luckily she was listened to by her GP, and she's a work in progress. And I would also work with her from time to time. So what are we saying? Trauma can be caused by loss of a loved one. For a woman or man or child, in your maybe childhood, you were sexually abused, you were raped. That causes a lot of trauma, and it could be a lifelong trauma. A lot of people who I know that were sexually abused, they don't overcome it. Even in their childhood, after marriage, it's something they live with, and it does affect them. Because I have a childhood friend, and I have a friend from work who has opened up to me and told me that she was raped by her uncle, her mom's brother. And up till today, the trauma still haunts her. And she has panic attacks anytime she dreams about it or remembers it. So that's a form of trauma. If you have been physically abused, maybe there are children whom their parents beat them physically, for any little thing, humiliate them, call them names, tell them they'll never do well, you never make it in life. Those kind of childhood abuse, physical abuse, lead to trauma that can damage a child. And it can, have life-limiting effects in their adulthood. So it's very important. Then a woman or a man that is suffering DV in marriage, you got married and you expected it to be some sort of comfort, bed of roses, some happiness, and you start to experience DV, it can lead to trauma. And also divorce or separation in marriage can lead to trauma for both spouses, can lead to trauma for either the man or the woman, and can lead to trauma for the children, who might find it difficult to understand that, why is my mom and my dad not living together anymore? Why has the dynamics of our family changed? Why are we now, why do we have like a reconstructed family dynamics? So a lot of things like that, separation, divorce, co-parenting, which children did not envisage that they would ever go through, can lead to trauma. And emotional abuse of child and adult can cause trauma. When your spouse calls you derogatory names, when you call children derogatory names. I once counseled a boy recently, and over lunch, he said, "Auntie, can I speak to you?" And I said, "Yes, you can. Let's go out together." A 16 or 18-year-old boy. And he told me, he said, "My mom calls me a bastard, and I get really hurt. And she's been saying it for God knows how long I became able to understand what that word is. I know she says it in anger, but it's affected my mental health, Auntie. I need her to stop it." And I told this boy, I said, "Take me through your history. Take me through your childhood. Let's have a chat over lunch. And the kind of things that this 18-year-old revealed to me, honestly, it was also a learning process for myself, for things to watch out in my own children and in my profession, which is largely involved in looking after, children and mothers, maternal and children's health. And when you talk to teenagers, it's a wake-up call for you as a person, as a mother, to say, you know what, I need to be careful. I need to tread softly. I need to watch out for signs and symptoms, that I need to watch out for things that I do, my actions, that can lead to trauma in my children. And I also need to educate people to let them know how trauma how events, how things that you do can actually impact on others, especially young people, how we as parents can do things that can damage our children, that can damage our youths in the society. So emotional abuse plays a very large role in trauma. The loss of a job, lack of financial empowerment, childhood disability. Some mothers go through a lot of trauma and still go through it. You're pregnant for 9 months and then you birth a child, and the child has some form of life-limiting, disability, maybe trisomy 21, Down syndrome. Even though the society we live in accepts them, but you yourself, you might feel some stigma for yourself, even though that stigma is not being apportioned to you by the society, especially with, Black race. Africans, most especially, let me narrow it down to Nigeria, where I come from, that you having a child with Down syndrome, people are bound to stigmatize or label you, or see you as insufficient, or see your child as a special needs child, which a lot of people back home do not understand. So that trauma of, maybe you are told before the birth that your child might have congenital heart disease, or might have a hernia, hole in the heart, or the child might have cystic fibrosis, or the child might have cancer or terminal diseases, that the prognosis of that child, it's not good. But you still decide to go ahead with the pregnancy. And the shock and trauma of that can lead to some kind of mental, health challenge or illness, or some sort of trauma that you can't cope with. And also, a lot of women who experience barrenness, childlessness, or they have long waiting times before conceiving due to one thing or the other, or it might just be natural that they have to wait 5, 10, 15, even 1 year. For some people can cause them trauma. In our society as Black people, they believe that you get married today, by next week your stomach is protruding, and they start to ask you, when are the babies coming, either stylishly or in a mocking way, and not many people have the emotions to take that on board, especially when it starts getting to like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It can lead to trauma. It can lead to a lot of trauma. Also, inability to conceive, and you don't know what's going on. You've gone for all the checks, and they're saying that there's no reason why you can't conceive. There's no reason why, you and your husband cannot have a child, and you are both clear. And then the child is not coming, or you are having several miscarriages, or you've done IVF severally, and it just keeps failing. I have a friend, this younger sister of a friend, who had 11 courses of IVF. 11. She then gave up. But those 11 years were years of trauma. In between those traumatic experiences, I spoke to her. And from speaking to her, I knew her mental health was affected. But she pulled through. She pulled through. She pulled through. She pulled through. She was able to live life on the surface. But we that knew her closely knew that she was affected. And eventually she came out publicly. She was on a talk show in Nigeria, and she spoke about her experience and her journey of then to becoming a mother. But eventually today she's late. May her soul rest in perfect peace. So a lot of people wear their trauma on their sleeves, the way we wear our clothes. And I always say this thing to myself, and it's like a phrase. It's a phrase I've coined out. It's like a quote that I always use every time I look at the mirror, and I say, thank you, Jesus, that I don't look like what I've been through. So likewise, a lot of people, we adorn ourselves, we beautify ourselves, we dust up our sleeves, and we move on. But everyone has a battle. And that's why we say, let's all be kind to one another out there, because each and every one of us is going through something. And it is the clothes that we put on that cover our bodies. So also, diagnosis of terminal illness, either for your child or for you as an adult or for loved ones that you know. Cancers everywhere, leukemia, pancreatic cancers, diabetes, high blood pressure, all forms. Trauma can lead to such things, or they can cause trauma. Such events, such diagnosis, the shock effect of getting it, and then, not being able to take it out of your mind, and your worries about it. Am I going to die? How am I going to live life? It can lead and build up to trauma. For children, neglect from parents. In the UK here, and I know in Canada, in America, a lot of developed countries in Europe or Asia, around the global continent, neglect is a form of abuse. And it does affect children and cause trauma to them, even in childhood and later in adulthood. Some parents will put money over their children. A teenager has once told me, said, all my mom knows is how to make this pound sterling. All she cares about is money. I see a lot of my friends when we come together. This is a male young adult who told me this. He said, Auntie, my mom, I think she's missed it. Because I keep telling her, Mommy, this money that you're going out to make every time, do you think it can buy my love? You're pushing me away gradually. And when I go to university, just pray that after I leave university, once I go to university and I head up, if you're not careful, you lose me to the point whereby I would not return to the home. And when I start living on my own, you might not see me again. You're always working, Mom. Even when we were young, you were never there. Yes, you gave us a house to live in. Yes, you gave us the basic things that we need: shelter, food, water, but clothes. But Mom, you're never there, as in there. You never took time off work to take us on holiday. When I sit with my friends and they're saying, oh, summer holiday, we went to Butlins, or we went to the park, or we went to the circus, or we went to, those parks where you have different, fun fair being paraded, and you pay and you have ice cream with the children, or you just said, Auntie, when my friends say this, I have nothing to say back because my mom doesn't give us all that. And I'm still battling with the trauma that my dad is a non-resident father. And I don't even have a relationship with my dad. Now, then I live in the house with my mom and I grew up with her. And all she does is she go to work and she brings in money and she tells me that I'm trying to secure your future. And I keep wondering, what future is she securing if she has not built memories for me in my childhood? Auntie, I lost all my childhood. I have friends. I have 4 or 5 friends that are my closest friends, right from secondary school, and we're now going to uni, some from primary, secondary, and we're headed up to uni soon in A levels. And we sit down and talk together. We now go on holidays together, and they're telling me about their childhood. Discussions will bring it, and I have nothing to say. Come on, going to the park and buying ice cream and things like that. My mom did not even make room for that. Now that is trauma. That's that child exhibiting trauma. And she said what? She said, Auntie, thank you. I'm 18 and all these years I've not been able to open up to anyone except to you, Auntie. And I'm so glad I made myself available to this young man. Fantastic young man who, despite all his struggles, all his trauma, he didn't turn to addiction, he didn't turn to alcohol, he didn't turn to drugs. And through the help of God, and maybe the kind of friends that he chose, his peers, he held it together and said, even though my mom is not providing all these things and she's not there for me, both as a mother, as a friend I can talk to, as a confidant, I'm not going to miss it. I know what is bad. I will know what is right from what is wrong. I'm going to surround myself with positivity. But I don't know if later in life I'm going to be able to forgive her, or I'm going to want to see her again. Because even my older siblings don't have a relationship with my mom. They don't come around the house. That struck a chord in me, that what if this were my child? And a lot of moms need to ask themselves, people who will watch this program later, or people who are watching it right now, are you asking yourself, am I in that category? Am I indirectly causing my children trauma? Do I take time to talk to them, find out about their emotions, sit down, have family time with them? Neglect is very huge in trauma. child neglect. You just thinking as a parent, oh, they'll be fine. No, they are not fine. They are being damaged. And that damage is leading to trauma. Yes, we have to work. Yes, we have to pay bills. But do you put money? Do you put money over your children? Do you build memories that would help support them emotionally? Do you build? You don't have to have all the money in the world to build memories with your children. Ordinarily going to the supermarket to buy bread and milk, and you walk to the supermarket or the corner shop, you're singing together, you are holding hands, you are in the present, you are there with them. All a child needs is love, not designer clothes, not designer shoes and bag, not adornment. All a child needs is love. They don't know whether you are putting them on a mattress that doesn't have bed sheet. When you are there with them and you sleep on it, they roll over you, you play together. That's what they'll remember. They won't remember sleeping on a Gucci bed. Yes, the good things of life, they're extras, they're jara, but do you neglect the core? I was made to understand today about another dimension to trauma, which someone shared with me. Community, environmental experiences can also lead to trauma. And a lot of us in diaspora who have left the shores of our country for either greener pastures, or we just find ourselves here, even without us thinking we would live here. But it's God that charts the course of one's life. A good brother was speaking to me today and was telling me a very sad story. And I know a lot of people in diaspora, either US, Canada, Germany, Luxembourg, anywhere, even here in London, would identify with it, especially with some of the riots that we've recently had that has heightened the cause of racism. A story came out to me today, just a few minutes into starting this podcast. And it was shared to me that a young lady who her roots are back home from Nigeria, mixed race. One of her parents is a Nigerian and the other maybe South African or thereabout. This lady, very pretty, and from her childhood, all she ever wanted was to become Miss South Africa. And you know, girls who are very girly and want to be princesses and be involved in, being a beauty pageant, they start from childhood. They start nurturing, they start engaging in various, events, various schooling that would take them through the career pathway of becoming a beauty pageant. And this girl has been going to such schools, such classes, undertaking such events, that will lead her to the pinnacle of competing in the beauty pageant as Miss South Africa. And she's of African descent, as a Nigerian and South Africa mixed family. And this girl finally scaled all the hurdles. Maybe from year 6 or 7, she's been engaging in various events or going to school, which would take her through the pathway of actually becoming a representative of South Africa and engaging in the beauty pageant. The beauty pageant was held about 2 or 3 weeks ago or thereabouts, if I'm not mistaken. And this girl represented South Africa. And in the course of being identified and crowned as, Miss South Africa, someone from somewhere just got up and said she cannot be successful because, in quote, she's not a South African due to lineage descent. You can imagine. Because she's mixed race or because her father is Nigerian or thereabout. And the ability to compete in that fantastic, in that pageant, which is the pinnacle of what she's been working towards, it was taken away from her completely. And all eyes saw it. And the story began to circulate all over South Africa. Some people known to her parents, some of her friends that were waiting to rejoice with her as being crowned as Miss South Africa. They all heard the story. And tell me the trauma that this will create in this child's life. Trauma of identity. Trauma of coming to terms with racial discrimination in this 21st century. Trauma of subtle bullying. Bullying due to your ethnic background, due to your race. Bullying through, Afrophobic environment, xenophobic environment that you found yourself. This girl did not create herself to be mixed race or have a Nigerian father or South African mother. The trauma of frustration that she's in a situation beyond her control and no one is able to fight for her. This is a 23-year-old girl who has spent all her life preparing to excel and be crowned Miss South Africa. Now, after this was taken away from her, the opportunity was taken away from her, and everybody identified that this crown belonged to this girl, and she has worked hard to get to that level, and she's the most beautiful in the competition, and then she's knocked out. Can anybody tell me how this will not cause trauma? She needs to go into therapy, no doubt about that, because she'll be asking questions. Why me? Her parents will be asking questions, and they need to support their daughter to make her come to terms or understand why. And this is also beyond the parents' control, because they just had a child. 2 people fell in love, got married, had this beautiful, 23-year-old girl, maybe 23 years ago. And how do they explain to her why she's mixed race? And I know there are a lot of people out there, I've met people who are mixed race as well, who trauma of being mixed race and the bullying they've experienced, has cost them, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of why questions, You know, a lot of bullying out there, either in schools, primary, secondary, even in the work environment, in the community, in the society. People calling them, you know, names, telling them that they're either here nor there, they're a mistake in the society. I've met people like that, and I've read research concerning that. I've attended, you know, conferences on how to support people like that, because it could mess up, it could affect their mental health. So, you know, this kind of issues. When I heard that story, my heart went out to that 23-year-old girl. And I said, wow, she needs to receive some form of support, counseling, to understand why she can't be crowned. And I really just don't understand why. Because I remember when this xenophobic attack, you know, on Nigerians in South Africa, but I thought it was over, but it's actually not over, because we all witnessed what happened in the last 2 weeks in UK. The EDL, you know, people saying that they're claiming their country back from we foreigners. In this age and time, who would ever think that such a thing will happen? And it awakes trauma in some of us who have lived here for so long. I've been here 21 years. And yeah, I've been through a lot of bullying. I've been through a lot of traumatic experiences in work environment while trying to settle down. And still, we're still trying to settle down 21 years after. Because some people somewhere will just believe that they cannot accept us due to the color of our skin, due to what we represent. But we're still pushing. And we're pushing and telling our children and trying to educate them that the traumas that we have gone through, they should know. And as they're getting older, they're understanding the dynamics of the society. They're seeing it themselves. And we're helping them to understand by explaining to them, by guiding them jealously, so that they would not fall into the net of trauma and mental, you know, health issues that things like racism, tribalism, bullying, harassment in society, in work environment can cause. Another problem is immigration problem, which I do read a lot because I follow Dr. Shola in America. I follow him on you know, Instagram, and I do read a lot of things. People who are unable to access, you know, healthcare in America due to not having the right papers. All over the world, you'll find Nigerians, you find Africans. But I always narrow it to Nigeria because I am a Nigerian. You know, a lot of trauma goes on when you don't have the legal papers, the right papers to stay in a country. But you are in that country in search of greener pastures, the wherewith to eat. And I always say to myself, and always say to other people that I know, that for every Nigerian that is represented in UK or in any developed country, or maybe sometimes second or third, you know, class countries that are still a bit well off, more organized than the country of our birth, which is Nigeria, because at times Nigeria is seen as a baby that has refused to grow over 60 years. So some other African countries can provide some sort of solace and, you know, some sort of greener pasture where some of our people travel to. And then they get to that country, they're faced with the challenge of not having the right documents, the right immigration paper to settle down. One trauma has been caused, and that trauma is they're living in fear of the day the hand of the law will catch up with them. Maybe the police would pick them on the streets. Immigration will fish them out from the address they are staying. That will lead to trauma. Every day of fear, anxiety, panic that, I'm illegal in this country. And it could lead to some form of mental breakdown. From Dr. Shola's page, in the last 2 or 3 months, I've read of people that their relations and family are looking for them since they left the shores of Nigeria. Some have not been seen 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They don't know whether these people are dead or they're still living. And they would write, they will contact, this social media personality and say, we're looking for this, our son. We're looking for this, our daughter. And words will come back. Some of them are dead. Some of them are still living, but they're like walking corpse. Because this issue of immigration problems, it leads to a lot of trauma. And the trauma for the people back home as well. You can imagine your aged mom in the village, 70, 80, 90 years old, and you've left the country about 30 years ago, and she's not set eyes on her son or her daughter, and she doesn't know whether you are alive or you are dead. Wọ́n ní ọmọ ẹni kú, ó sàn ju ọmọ ẹni sọnù lọ. That woman might carry that trauma to the grave, that I've not seen my child. And that child living in the country, that adult living in America, inability to access health care. What if the person develops just things like bronchiolitis during winter and you're not able to access Medicare? And the fear of you going to the hospital, because from those kind of platforms, I do read a lot of things, and lack of knowledge. They say knowledge is power. They're not saying you would not be treated if you turn up at hospital, because I know of the Medicare package which Obama started, for people who are unable to, access insurance through work and stuff like that. But some knows the fear that what if I turn up and then immigration catches me and they throw me on the next flight? So they stay in their one room or wherever they are living with that ailment. And I've seen so many videos of people who have died overnight in the house, or maybe the stench just, is enveloping the whole environment, or someone somewhere just says, oh, we are not hearing from this person. They don't come to church anymore, or we don't see them in the community and things, and decide to go to the house. And then the door is broken down and they found out the person has died. A lot of trauma must have led to that. A lot of things must have happened. So trauma comes in so many different ways. I don't want to spend more than an hour on this program today, because when it gets too long, it bores people. And I would be maybe continuing next week, when we would be able to look into signs and symptoms of trauma. How do you identify trauma in your life, in the life of your child, in the life of loved ones? How do you identify trauma? What are the signs? What are the symptoms? If you remember the story I started with about a lady who contacted me and said, you know, the pain of losing her mom when she was 6 years old and her inability to just get past it. I had to ask her, what's been going on? Tell me about your childhood. So next week I'll be talking about the signs and the symptoms of trauma, what the things to watch out for. And then we'll talk about the solution to trauma. If you're going through trauma, what can you do? What is the solution? What are the things that can help you to overcome that trauma? And the question is, does trauma ever go away? Well, the answer is no. Trauma doesn't ever go away. There is no cure for trauma. It may never completely go away. However, with the right support and treatment, an individual can learn to manage and to reduce the impact of trauma on their life. In as much as it may never completely go away, but you can live a healthy, balanced, holistic life with good and successful outcomes if you are able to identify and seek for support in managing the trauma. So we'll be discussing the solutions to that trauma that you're going through. We'll be helping you, to identify the signs and symptoms for you to know that, yes, this is trauma and you have to do something about it. It's very, very important for any individual that is going through trauma. It's very important for them to be able to speak up. Even if it takes months, years for you to come to terms with it. You might not know how bad it is until you go into therapy. You might not know that it is trauma until you talk to someone and they help you identify it. So there are solutions to trauma that can help you to overcome and lead a healthy and successful life. It's very, very important. We also would look at the healing process that can help trauma, and also the signs and symptoms which are anatomical and physiological experiences that your body will tell you when trauma has reached a crescendo, when it has reached a point whereby it starts affecting you physically, your anatomical build-up, your physiological elements. Because if you are going through trauma, it can affect you physically. Those stresses that are causing the trauma, those lifelong events, either ongoing or from childhood, that have led to that trauma, they can start affecting your body physically. And it can let parts of your body shut down. Or you can develop illnesses from trauma, which can create shock effects and put you in either flight or fight mode. We will talk about all that next week when we come back on this program, which is called How is Your Mental Health? It is important that we all look after ourselves. It's important that we all look after our mental health and make connection with our body, make connection with our organs, our vital signs, make connection with our emotions, make connection with our anatomy and physiology and components of our body that will tell us that, am I going through stressful situation? Is my mental health being affected? Am I developing some form of mental illness due to trauma that I've encountered? Are there things in my past? Are there things in my present that I've not reconciled with that are causing trauma? Every time, I remember them. Every time, it tries to push me into that dark place, which I don't want to go. Or it builds up pain. It builds up anger in me that can cause a damaging effect that will take away my happiness, take away my joy. With anything concerning mental health, concerning mental illnesses, I've come to the realization, and a lot of professionals will tell you, a lot of therapists, psychotherapists, either group talking therapy, either one-to-one that you go for, no one can make you happy except yourself. Whether you're going through trauma, whether you're going through anxiety, depression, panic attacks, bipolar disorder, any form of mental illness, of mental health challenge, the bottom line is you have to find that joy yourself by reconnecting to yourself, by standing up and saying, I can beat this, by motivating yourself, by employing strategies to overcome through positive affirmation. If it means you have to wake up every morning, look at yourself in the mirror and speak positive affirmation to yourself. Words from the Bible. As a Christian, there is a particular verse or verses in the Bible that I love so much, that I always read to myself every time, and is in Deuteronomy 28, verse 1 to 13. And one of the verses, I think is verse 6, I always tell myself, OLUWANIYI, you are the head, you will never be the tail. You are above, you will never be beneath. Because voices will come and speak to you, make you feel worthless, make you feel inferior to who God wants you to be. We all go through it at one point or, at another in our life. But you know what? You can do it. Next week, I'm bringing someone who I came across on another platform, and she spoke about her story and how she battled depression. Her story touched my life, and I said, wow, I have to bring this lady to this program as a form of motivation for other people to say, what? Hope is not lost. She went down so bad that You know, she suffered severe suicide ideation and felt it was over until help came professionally, spiritually, through support from her spouse, her children, her mother, everyone. All hands were on deck to say, no, this is not you. But something led to the depression. And as I said, we are all wired differently. What A is able to overcome, B might not be able to overcome it. What C can pass through and it will not break them, D might only pass through a handful, and mentally they will be drained, they will be tired, and it will give way. So we can't cast aspersion on anybody. We can't tell anyone, oh, get a life, you are attention seeking. Mental health doesn't work that way. We're all individuals, even twins, triplets, quadruplets, quintuplets, sextuplets, septuplets, or how do they call it? They're from the same womb, but their anatomy and physiology is different individually. That's why we have to support one another. That's why we have to be kind to one another. As that quote says, be kind to the other person next to you because you don't know what they are going through. Until I come your way next week on this program titled, How is Your Mental Health? I leave you with this phrase as we embark on another week, another glorious week coming our way, where we do not know where our feet will take us, where we do not know, and we do not know what the week holds, what it will bring. But one thing we are assured of is our paths will cross with people. We will meet people that we know or people that are new to us. Try and show a little kindness to someone. Help someone today. It could be through a kind word. It could be just through direction of showing someone the way. It could be through just telling someone, are you okay? Being kind, being helpful, being supportive in one way or the other to someone makes the world a better place. Until I come your way next week, I still remain OLUWANIYI-ASAAJU, the pioneer and founder of KOA Foundation, where my purpose lies in supporting people with mental health challenges. Be kind to your mind. Above all things, I wish that you may be in good health and with a sound mind. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Please like, share on your various platforms because you don't know who this will get to and who will listen to it. And once again, I want to thank African Portal based in South Africa for giving us this platform, for encouraging us, and for working together with us to make the world a better place and spread the word about how important mental wellness is in the society. Wishing you a blessed week, and till I come your way next week, it is KOA Foundation signing out. Thank you.
jọ̀bọ̀ lápá kò lè dáṣà mú kíọkíọ. èyí ló mú KOA Foundation Òfórọlá Olúwatóyìn Aṣáájú pẹ̀lú olùrànlọ́wọ́ rẹ̀ Pásítọ̀ Olúwaníyì-Aṣáájú ní àfojúsùn nípa ríran àwọn obìnrin lọ́wọ́, àwọn èwe, àwọn ọ̀dọ́ àti ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ìdílé lọ́wọ́ láyìíká pé kí wọ́n má fàyè gba ẹ̀rù, ìrònú àbájì láàyè. Ṣé ọrọ̀ ajé rẹ ò gbé pẹ́lí? Kí ló fẹ́ fi ìrònú dorí ara rẹ rú sí? Ìṣòro nípa ẹ̀kọ́, bí a ṣe ń tọ́jú àwọn àkàndá tí a sì ń kọ́ wọn ní ẹ̀kọ́ tí wọ́n fi bá ẹgbẹ́ pé lọ́jọ́ iwájú. Gbígbógun ti ìṣẹ́ òun òṣì, ìrónilágbára, gbígbani ní ìmọ̀ràn nípa bí a ṣe lè gbé ilé ayé, ẹ̀kọ́ láti di adarí rere lágbàáyé tí a sì ń kọ́ni bí a ti ń fi àdúrà yanjú àwọn ìṣòro tó bá kojú ẹni. KOA Foundation Òfórọlá Olúwatóyìn Aṣáájú Foundation ti ń ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀, kò rẹ̀ wọ́n, kò sì ní rẹ̀ wọ́n nípa níná ọwọ́ rẹ pẹ̀lú ayọ̀ láti fi sọrí 50 ọdún tí a bí ìyá wa Òfórọlá Olúwatóyìn Aṣáájú, tí a ó sì pín àwọn ẹ̀bùn rabandẹ̀ fún àwọn àkàndá nílé ẹ̀kọ́ wọn pẹ̀lú àwọn ohun amáyédẹrùn tí wọ́n nílò. Ìyẹn ò nìkan kọ́, àwọn obìnrin, àwọn èwe àti àwọn ọ̀dọ́ yóò jẹ àǹfààní ẹ̀bùn oríṣiríṣi bíi tàtẹ̀yìnwá, èyí tí yóò wáyé ní ọjọ́ 21 oṣù kẹjọ ọdún tá a wà nínú rẹ̀ yìí. Ekudi ó gbọ́, kó sọ fún toko, káàdùn ó gbọ́, kó lọ rò fún ọbẹ̀. KOA Foundation yóò ṣe bẹbẹ pẹ̀lú àfọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀ Sacred Heart and KOA Foundation ENT'L is owned by US, both here in UK and Nigeria. Fún àlàyé kíkún ẹ̀kan sí +447395343648. KOA Foundation, èròǹgbà retí fún àwọn obìnrin.